Lilian was one of those people you would call sold out to God. Not the loud kind of Christian, but the consistent kind. Quiet, faithful, and deeply committed. Ever since she rededicated her life to Christ, she held on to one personal vow. God, I will serve you with my time, my voice, and my life. She made that promise in tears, and she hadn't broken it ever since. She joined the choir not long after, not because someone begged her or because she wanted to be noticed, but because singing was her gift, and she believed it should be given back to the one who gave it. For over 2 years, Lilian served in that choir, always on time, always present, even midweek service she never missed. What surprised people the most was that she wasn't jobless. Lilian worked as a customer service representative at a bank, a stressful job that left many drained, but not her. She always found time for God. If church started by 5 p.m., Lilian would be seated by 4:30 p.m. Hair packed neatly, voice warmed up, her small Bible on her lap. She would whisper worship songs to herself, eyes closed, while other choristers rushed in 10 minutes before service began. Nobody really saw her. She wasn't the lead singer, wasn't even on the backup list most times. Her job was mostly to stay on the third row, singing with the rest. No solos, no microphone moments, but she didn't complain. She was serving her master, and that was enough. Until one evening, it was a midweek service. Rain had just stopped, and the smell of wet sand still filled the church compound. The choir had gathered for final preparations, but something was wrong. The lead praise minister, Cecilia, was nowhere to be found. Her number wasn't going through, and time was ticking fast. The music director, Brother David, stood at the edge of the choir pew, his hands scratching his beard. You could see the tension on his face. The pastor had just started the opening prayer, and they had no one to take the praise session. Then suddenly, he looked across the row, his eyes landing on Lilian. "You will take the praise session," he whispered. "Me?" Lilian blinked, stunned. She had never even held a mic in front of the congregation, let alone led praise. She glanced around to see if someone else would object, but David had already turned and returned to his seat. By the time the opening prayer ended, her heart was beating fast. "Holy Spirit, help me," she whispered, walking up the stage with trembling hands. Then she opened her mouth, and the heavens opened with her. It started soft, her voice layered with emotion full of sincerity, and then it built. As the praise intensified, something shifted in the atmosphere. The church erupted. People danced like they were free. Even passers-by walking along the street peeked into the open tents and joined in. Ushers ran to make space for more cheers. Cecilia eventually arrived halfway through the praise, hair wet from the rain, phone battery flat, she said. But as she entered, her steps slowed. The entire auditorium was on fire, and at the center of it all was Lilian, eyes closed, hands lifted, leading God's people into worship like she was born for it. She stood still and just stared. After the service, even the pastor couldn't hide his surprise. "Brother David," he said aloud, "make sure she leads praise more often." That moment changed everything. Lilian became the voice that drew people to church. Attendance doubled the following Sunday. The ushers ran out of tags. The media team couldn't stop replaying the service. And Brother David, he started spending more time with her. Choir rehearsals ran longer. Song lists were co-prepared. They began sharing ideas, prayer points, laughs. She called him Brother D. He called her Minister L, a name that always made her smile. It wasn't just about music anymore. They had become friends. Everyone saw it. Everyone appreciated Lilian. Everyone except Cecilia. Cecilia's heart burned, not from jealousy of Lilian's voice, but from something deeper, from the fact that David, her longtime crush, never noticed her. Not once in the 5 years she had silently loved him. She had waited. She had hoped. She believed that one day he would see that she was the right one. But now, all she could see was how he laughed more with Lilian, talked longer with Lilian, even prayed differently when Lilian was involved. And Lilian, she was oblivious, too humble to notice, too focused on God to think of any romance. But Cecilia had had enough. Saturday morning came quietly, but Cecilia's mind was storming. She had spent the entire night tossing on her bed, staring into the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. Her chest felt heavy. She was tired of wondering what could have happened, tired of waiting for David to one day see her. What made it worse was that she had tried. God knows she tried. She had been kind, available, helpful. She offered to stay back after rehearsals just to search sheet music for him. She brought him snacks, remembered his birthday every year, even fasted for him once. But nothing worked. David had never looked at her with more than just quiet eyes. No compliments, no signs, no emotion, just Sister Cecilia. God bless you and thanks for your service. And now, all his warmth, his laughter, his prayers, his smiles were being handed to someone else, someone who didn't even fight for it, someone who just walked up to the stage one day and suddenly became everything Cecilia had dreamed to be. It burned. That morning, Cecilia stood before her mirror, smoothing down her blouse and adjusting her curly weave. She looked at herself and nodded. Today, she whispered, no more waiting, no more silence. She grabbed her bag and walked out of the house. David lived just a few blocks away. She had never visited before, but she had asked one of the choir brothers about his place weeks ago. In case of emergency, she had said, smiling shyly. Now, here she was, walking boldly down the street, holding her breath and her pride. As she approached his compound, her steps slowed. The gate was half opened. She walked in quietly, trying not to alert anyone. She passed the parked car, turned a corner, and just as she was about to knock on the door, her eyes caught a scene through the side window. She froze. There, inside David's living room, sat Lilian. She was laughing, sitting close, too close. David was beside her, both of them talking softly. Then she saw it. He leaned closer. She tilted her head, and then it happened. A kiss, soft and brief, but clear. Cecilia's heart stopped. She stared like someone watching their entire world collapse. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted, but no words came. She had hoped to walk in and finally pour her heart out, but now everything inside her turned cold. Her hand reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. With trembling fingers, she quickly took a picture through the window. She was about switching to video when her leg brushed a rusted paint can on the floor. It felt like a loud metallic bang. Jesus! She gasped and ducked. Inside, the sound startled both David and Lilian. They looked towards the window, confused. Cecilia didn't wait to be caught. She turned and ran out of the compound. She didn't stop until she was far away, heart pounding, lungs burning. But she had the picture. That night, she didn't sleep. She didn't even cry. She just stared at the photo. And by the next morning, she had forwarded it to the pastor. The Sunday service that followed felt unusually heavy. Lilian noticed it from the gate. The smiles were thin, the greetings shallow. A few people nodded stiffly. The warmth she was used to had suddenly gone cold. Even during the opening worship, she felt eyes watching her, lips whispering. Still, she focused. She told herself it was probably just her imagination. After the sermon, while people were greeting and taking photos outside, a church worker tapped her gently. Pastor would like to see you and Brother David. She looked up, confused. Now? Yes, right away. In the pastor's office, they both sat quietly, Lilian and David, unsure of what was going on. Pastor didn't waste time. What happened yesterday? He asked, looking from one to the other. David blinked. Sir? Don't play innocent, the pastor snapped. Don't insult my intelligence. What happened between both of you yesterday? Lilian and David exchanged glances, still confused. Sir, we... Lilian began, but he raised his hand sharply. Stop pretending. You think I'm joking? He picked up his phone and turned the screen towards them. The picture, clear as daylight. David and Lilian caught in a kiss. Lilian gasped and covered her mouth. David's face drained of color. Sir, please, let's explain, please. David stammered. It wasn't what it looks like, Lilian said, her voice shaking. David leaned forward. Sir, I wasn't feeling well yesterday. I called Sister Lilian to help me get some medication. She came, prayed with me, we got talking, and yes, we kissed, but just once, briefly. We were shocked ourselves. So we stopped immediately and even prayed together afterward, asking God for forgiveness. It wasn't planned. It was a moment of weakness. Lilian added quietly, We are truly sorry, sir. We never even imagined someone would see us, let alone take a picture. The pastor exhaled. The weight in the room was heavy. I'm disappointed, he finally said. But I also know people make mistakes. And I have known you, David, for a long time. I trust your judgment and your repentance. He glanced briefly at Lilian, but didn't say much to her. I'll let this go, he said. But be careful. Avoid temptation. Don't give room for the devil again. David and Lilian both nodded, deeply remorseful. Thank you, sir. They stood and left, grateful that it hadn't gone public. But someone else had other plans. The next Sunday came like any other, or so it seemed. Lilian dressed as usual. Her voice had healed after the storm of last week. David was at his post. Worship began, and as always, Lilian's voice echoed through the speakers, drawing people into a spirit of praise. But something was off. Whispers, stares. Some people were watching her like they knew something. David noticed it too. A few choir members barely spoke to him during pre-service prep. He thought it was just tension from the last-minute changes. But no, it was more than that. Then after service, as people made their way outside, a church usher leaned towards another sister and whispered. The sister gasped. Two teenage girls scrolled on a phone screen behind the building. Then, another group gathered in the parking lot, their eyes darting towards the choir stand. By the evening, the news had spread like wildfire. Cecilia had shared it with more people. And to silence the doubters, she showed the picture to anyone who raised an eyebrow. See for yourself, she would say. That's your holy music team, kissing in secret, but leading worship like saints. Some people tried to hush her, but she wouldn't back down. And do you know what hurt most? She added, her eyes sharp. The pastor knows, and said nothing. They confessed, and he let it slide. Imagine, if this is not cover up, then what is it? Her words fanned the fire. Within days, the gossip became a wave that swept through the church. From teenagers to elders, everyone had heard it. Phones buzzed with the image. Choir members began skipping rehearsals. Ushers were uncomfortable. Attendance dropped sharply. The committee could no longer stay silent. They called an emergency meeting with the pastor. This thing is getting out of hand, one elder said. People are threatening to leave the church. And some have already left, another added. We cannot pretend anymore. The pastor sat quietly, nodding slowly. What do you propose we do? He asked. The church must see that we stand for discipline, that we are not covering sin. Suspend them publicly. Let people know we are not playing favoritism. The pastor sighed. Deep down, he didn't want to embarrass anyone, but the pressure was mounting. People were threatening to take the matter to social media. If they didn't act, the damage could go beyond control. And so, it was decided that Sunday, after the message had been preached and just before the closing prayer, the pastor cleared his throat. There is something important I must address, he said, his voice firm. We believe in holiness and we believe in grace, but we also believe in order. Two members of our music department, Brother David and Sister Lilian have erred. They acted in a way that is not acceptable on the altar. There were gasps. Lilian's chest tightened where she stood. David froze. They have been spoken to privately, the pastor continued. And now, for the sake of the body of Christ, they will be suspended from all choir activities until further notice. There was silence, heavy, awkward. David bowed his head. Lilian blinked back tears. Not from the discipline, she knew she had erred, but from how public it had become. People were looking at her as though she was filth, as though all the good she had done was erased by one mistake. The following Sunday, she still came to church quietly, sat at the back, took notes, tried to stay invisible, but that didn't help. As soon as the pastor mounted the pulpit, a family on the third row stood and walked out. Another family followed shortly after. Some left right before offering. Whispers started again. She still comes to church? Shameless! The committee met again. The church is bleeding, they said. We can't afford to lose more people. The only way to restore peace is to suspend them from attending church entirely for now. The pastor hesitated. Isn't that too much? We are not saying forever, but let them stay away for a while, just to calm things down. And that was it. On Tuesday, David and Lilian requested to see the pastor. They walked into his office, hoping to reason with him, to explain again, to beg. But what Lilian heard that day shattered her. My hands are tied, the pastor said plainly. The committee has decided. David tried to plead. Sir, we've accepted the choir suspension, but please, don't send us away from church. The pastor looked at David and sighed. I want to believe you didn't take advantage of her. I still trust you. Then he looked to Lilian. But you? He said slowly. How do I know you didn't throw yourself at him? You have a history. Your past is not pure. Maybe the flesh is still calling you. Lilian's eyes widened. What? You're still the same girl, aren't you? He said, trying to look holy, but deep down. Enough! Lilian said quietly, rising from her seat. Her legs felt weak. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the man who once promised to be her spiritual father. She had shared her past with him in confidence. When she gave her life to Christ and rededicated herself to church, she told him about the life she had left behind, the drinking, the clubbing, the pain. He had laid hands on her, prayed over her and told her, your past is gone. You are clean. All things are passed away and all things have become new. Now, here he was, throwing it back at her. David tried to speak, but Lilian shook her head. It's fine, she whispered. She turned and walked out. The church she served had wounded her again. Lilian didn't sleep that day. She sat on the floor in her room, back against the bed, legs stretched out, her eyes swollen from tears. She hadn't touched food. Her phone buzzed once or twice, but she ignored it. The pastor's words echoed in her ears over and over again. Maybe the flesh is still calling you. You're still that same girl, aren't you? It was like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed the life out of her heart. She felt exposed, abandoned, not just by the church, but by the very people she thought would stand with her through anything. By morning, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. On her way to buy pain relievers from a small pharmacy nearby, she heard a group of girls laughing. At first, she didn't think it was about her, until she heard one of them say, the angelic voice with the body doings. They all burst out laughing. Her stomach turned. She lowered her face and walked faster. Another time, two women across the street pointed and whispered, not knowing she could hear them. That's her, the one from the picture, the music minister. Ha! I always suspected something about her, you know? Everywhere she went, she felt like eyes were scanning her from head to toe. Every smile felt fake, every stare judgmental. That evening, she packed a small bag and booked a night bus. She was done. The next morning, Lilian knocked gently on a brown gate in a quiet street 2 cities away. It wasn't long before the gate flung open and a tall, curvy lady in Ankara wrapper and silk bonnet appeared. It was Folake. Ah, Folake screamed. Look who finally remembered her roots. She pulled Lilian into a warm hug, then held her at arm's length, scanning her face. Babe, you don't lose weight, oh. You no even tell me say you dey come. Come inside, Joe. Inside the house, Folake tossed Lilian's bag on the couch and went straight to the fridge. You want noodles? Rice? I can cook now, you won't believe. But Lilian just sat there, still, quiet. Folake walked back into the living room, holding a bottle of malt and a half-open packet of crackers. She flopped beside her. Talk to me, what happened? Lilian hesitated for a moment. Then, she told her everything, from the choir breakthrough to the kiss, from the gossip to the suspension, and finally the words that broke her. By the end, her voice had cracked again. Folake didn't interrupt. She listened, eyes fixed on her. Then she sighed. You see, that's why I always laugh when you people talk about church family. So that's church family, right? The same people you serve faithfully. They threw you away because of ordinary kiss. Ordinary kiss. Lilian said nothing. Folake stood up and paced the room. Me that you people will call a sinner. I'm the one that accepts you. But the people wearing long skirts and tying scarf, they discard you. She stopped and pointed a finger. You see, there is no love in that your church. No compassion, just vibes and judgment. Lilian wiped her eyes slowly. Folake continued, her tone sharp. If you are bathing the baby and the baby pull inside the water, will you throw the baby away? Lilian shook her head. But that's exactly what they did to you. Over a kiss, ordinary kiss. And your so-called pastor even brought up your past. How could he? How low can someone go? She hissed and sat back down. I don't blame them, Sha. I blame you. Lilian looked up, confused. Yes, I blame you. Folake continued. You opened your heart to people who see only your history and not your growth. Why should a mistake define your future? See your life now, eh? Lilian lowered her head again. But Folake wasn't done. And what annoys me most, you people preach Jesus with all the fire. But you don't act like him at all. If that Jesus was standing there, you think he would have driven you away? Go and read about the woman caught in adultery. He said, go and sin no more, not leave the temple for now. The silence hung thick. Lilia didn't argue. She couldn't, because deep down, some part of her agreed with Folake. Her heart was slowly becoming hardened. For the next few days, she stayed indoors, didn't open her Bible, didn't play worship song. She just slept, cried, ate, then cried again. At night, she would stare at the ceiling and ask herself questions. Was rededicating my life to Christ a mistake? Maybe I should have just stayed in the world. Before I came back to church, I wasn't judged. I wasn't hurt like this. Maybe it's better to be bad openly than to try to be good and still get dragged. Her mind wandered to her past. She was just a little girl when her spiritual journey began. Raised by a single mother, her father died when she was 4. Lilia grew up in church. Every Sunday, every Wednesday, every night vigil, her mother was there. And so she was. Her mom was a strong woman, a worshipper. People often said Lilian got her voice from her mother. The two of them would sit and sing at home for hours. Even when the storm comes, her mother would say, never leave God. That's where your anchor is. Lilian believed it. She watched her mom serve the church with her whole heart. But then one day, her mother fell ill. It started with just fever, then got worse. Her mother's health deteriorated quickly. They went from one clinic to another, from prayer points to herbal mixtures, but nothing seemed to work. Their small savings vanished into medical bills. Lilian was in her early 20s, trying to juggle school and caretaking. She pleaded with the church for help, but what came next crushed her. Lilian remembered the day she carried her mother's hospital file and walked into the church admin office to seek help. It wasn't pride that delayed her. It was the belief that church would see them. They had served for years. Surely, help would come. But help didn't come. Instead, she was met with protocols, procedures, endless forms. You said your mom is a worker, right? The admin officer asked. Yes, sir. Which department? Welfare and intercessory. Okay, can she provide an updated self-fellowship attendance slip? Sir, she's been sick for weeks. She couldn't go to cell. That's a bit tricky. We also need a workers' clearance letter and a letter of request signed by your unit head. Have you gotten that? Lilian nodded slowly. I've submitted that already twice. The man sighed. Okay, we will get back to you. Lilian swallowed hard. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Every time she followed up, she got the same answer. We are still reviewing it. In the meantime, her mother's body grew weaker. Yet the church, which her mother had served passionately, gave only promises. Lilian wanted to scream, but her mother never complained. Even on her sickbed, she would whisper, "Don't be angry, my daughter. Maybe there are others too needing help." She would even pray for the church. Lilian couldn't understand it. All she saw was delay, neglect, coldness. Eventually, desperate and frustrated, Lilian approached a few worthy church members directly, people she had greeted every Sunday with smiles. Some gave small contributions, quietly, as if they were breaking some law. One man told her, "Let me get approval from the pastor first." Another said, "I'll pray about it." It wasn't enough. Her mom's condition worsened. They tried to believe for a miracle, prayed, fasted, but the heavens felt silent. Then one morning, Lilian woke up and found her mother unresponsive. She screamed, shook her, called neighbors, but it was too late. Her mother had gone. Just like that, Lilian was shattered. She screamed until her voice cracked, held her mother's hand until it went cold. She couldn't breathe. It felt like the world had ended. And the church struggled to even arrange her burial. There were meetings, delays, debates about budget. It took one brave elder who stood during a Sunday service and called out the hypocrisy. How can a woman who gave her all to this church be left like that in death? Only then did arrangement begin. Lilian stood beside the grave as her mother was lowered into the ground, her heart broken, not just by the loss, but by the silence of those she had once called family. After the burial, she never returned. It didn't take long before she drifted. The pain numbed her. The church had failed her. God felt silent, so she left it all. She met a new set of friends, wide, carefree, and loud. They welcomed her like she had always belonged. There were no expectations, no judging eyes, no "you are late to sell meeting" speeches. They drank, they smoked, they partied all night. At first, it felt strange. Then, it felt freeing. And then, it became her life. That was when she met Folake, the unapologetic one. Fearless, confident, beautiful in a bold kind of way. Folake took her in like a sister, taught her the lifestyle, how to ignore conscience, how to numb pain with music, drinks, and men. They became inseparable. For 5 years, Lilian didn't set foot in a church. She buried her church girl life under makeup, club lights, and Friday night highness. But something never sat right. At night, when everyone had passed out, she would lie on her bed, staring at the ceiling, whispering the same words her mother used to say. Even when the storm comes, never leave God. And then one day, out of nowhere, it hit her. She was in the back of a cab, hungover and tired, when a worship song played softly from the driver's radio. That voice, that sound, that pull, she wept like a child. That night, she knelt by her bed and rededicated her life to Christ. It wasn't dramatic, no revival music, no altar call, just her and God. She told herself she would start over, but not in the same city, not around people who knew her past. So she packed her bags, moved far away, and found a new church, quiet, small, but warm. She joined the choir. Then slowly, her voice began to open doors again. She was faithful, early, consistent, and finally trusted. And now, here she was, sitting on Folake's couch, bruised all over again.